Chapter 34. After 20 years.
How I reached the open air, I cannot tell you. I do not know. I have a confused recollection of rushing through vaulted passages, through endless corridors, of trampling over people who tried to arrest my passage, and the rest is blank. When I again came to myself, I was lying in the house of an American missionary named Clements. I had been found at early dawn, stark naked, in a Cairo street, and picked up for dead. Judging from appearances, I must have wandered for miles all through the night. Whence I had come, or whither I was going, none could tell. I could not tell myself.
The power delegated by the confidential to those entrusted with their secrets, Miss Woodley was the last person on earth to abuse. But she was also the last who, by an accommodating complacency, would participate in the guilt of her friend. And there was no guilt except that of murder, which she thought equal to the crime in question, if it was ever perpetrated. Adultery, reason would perhaps have informed her, was a more pernicious evil to society. But to a religious mind, what sound is so horrible as sacrilege?
Anna Federner, this good Anna, was of solid, lower-middle-class South German stock. When she was 17 years old, she went to service in a bourgeois family in the large city near her native town. But she did not stay there long. One day her mistress offered her maid, that was Anna, to a friend to see her home. Anna felt herself to be a servant, not a maid, and so she promptly left the place. Anna had always a firm old-world sense of what was the right way for a girl to do. No argument could bring her to sit an evening in the empty parlor, although the smell of paint when they were fixing up the kitchen made her very sick, and tired as she always was, she never would sit down during the long talks she held with Miss Matilda.
The murderers, seized with maddening fear, were on the point of completing the sentence aloud. They were gazing with fixed and troubled eyes at the avenging hand, when all at once that hand was convulsed and stretched flat on the table. Then it slipped and fell onto the old woman's knee like a mass of inanimate flesh. The paralysis had returned and stopped the punishment. Michaud and Olivier sat down again, disappointed, while Thérèse and Laurent tasted a joy so sudden that they nearly fainted from the blood thumping in their chests.
It had been suggested by Dr. Leete that we should devote the next morning to an inspection of the schools and colleges of the city, with some attempt on his own part at an explanation of the educational system of the 20th century.
"You will see,"
said he, as we set out after breakfast,
"many very important differences between our methods of education and yours. But the main difference is that nowadays all persons equally have those opportunities of higher education, which in your day only an infinitesimal portion of the population enjoyed. We should think we had gained nothing worth speaking of in equalizing the physical comfort of men without this educational equality."
"The cost must be very great," I said.
"If it took half the revenue of the nation, nobody would grudge it,"
replied Dr. Leete.
"Nor even if it took it all, save a bare pittance."
After writing this second letter, I set forth instantly for the house to which Mr. Bernard had directed me. No thought of myself, no thought even of the peril suggested by the ominous disclosure about Mannion in the postscript to the surgeon's letter, ever crossed my mind. In the great stillness, in the heavenly serenity that had come to my spirit, the wasting fire of every sensation which was only of this world seemed quenched for ever. It was 11 o'clock when I arrived at the house. A slatternly, sulky woman opened the door to me.
"Oh, I suppose you're another doctor," she muttered, staring at me with scowling eyes. "I wish you were the undertaker, to get her out of my house before we all catch our deaths of her. There's the other doctor coming downstairs. He'll show you the room. I won't go near it."
Blancandrin was a pagan very wise. In vassalage he was a gallant knight. First in prowess he stood his lord beside. And thus he spoke, "Do not yourself affright. Yield to Carlan, that is so big with pride, faithful service, his friend and his ally. Lions and bears and hounds for him provide, 1,000 mewed hawks, 700 camelry, silver and gold, 400 mules load high, 50 wagons his rights will need supply, till with that wealth he pays his soldiery."
You made a great mistake, I can tell you, when you started interfering between husband and wife. You have only yourself to thank if I don't allow you to continue to see Lucy. She stared at him. "Do you mean," she said after a silence, "that you intend to prevent my seeing her later on too? In London?" "That, exactly, is my intention." Miss Entwistle stared at him, lost in thought, but he could see he had got her this time, for her face had gone visibly pale,